We'll have Coach to start, and then
For your Father's Day article, you seem like a good person. People in the street are like, wow, Coach, yours. I'm like, nah, it's all Tom's writing. All right, what do you guys got?
I'll ask a question about the new building. We saw some of it. It's huge. Do you ever find yourself kind of maybe even getting lost in there? And how do you kind of navigate that large space and utilize all of it?
I think, and it's important to remember that we didn't design it. It was the staff before us. And I think the flow of it is really, really well thought out. All the athlete-centric modalities are on the first floor. So from training room to weight room to nutrition area to player development, locker room, recovery, it's all, 10, 15 feet. I think anytime you're trying to build something where you want people to utilize it, you think about, okay, who's the laziest person and how we can make it where they'll use it. So I think all of that's right there, player lounge. I think it's really well put together. The top floor, coaches' offices and all that. The only thing that's sometimes hard for me is like my office is as far away from possible as the players. So in a good way, it makes me get up and go walk to them. But I don't have as many guys. Like I love the old building. People are always walking by me. I had a chance to see players. So now I have to work a little bit harder at it, which is fine. And then the second floor being, life skills, academics, nutrition, training table, and that being for all student athletes. So I think it's really cool. It's kind of one-stop shop. So it's definitely big. A lot of it's that atrium, though. A lot of it's just that natural light and natural beauty. I think that was really well thought out. So I think it's an exemplary building, and people are certainly sort of blown away with it when they get there. I always have to remind myself, though, that at the end of the day, the building that I coached in at Temple would fit in that weight room. And we had 40-some future pro football players on one team there. So it comes down to the people that are in the building, but the building's excellent.
How would you size up the June camping experience so far, and what maybe from last year in your first year here did you take and use going into this second season?
Yeah, so when we talk about camps, people immediately go to recruiting. And what's bigger to me is the overall brand, right? I want people, when they see Nebraska football, when they see the Huskers, to have really positive memories or positive interactions. So between all of the, per se, Matt Rhule football camps, not the satellite camps, but the Matt Rhule football camps, you're talking about over 4,300 young people coming to a camp this year. That's just in terms of university enrollment, like that's great. 37 states. I mean, think about that. 37 states people came to camp from. We had our youth camps this week, and little kids come up to me, Coach, I came from Florida for this. Coach, I came from Colorado for this. So just in growing the Nebraska brand for the long-term future of, having Husker Nation people that have great experiences, them coming, having a great experience. Not everyone's going to play for us, but having a great experience. In terms of recruiting, I like to see players live. I get to like to see their competitive nature. I like to see their mindset. I like to see their skill set. So the fact that more and more people are coming each year to the camp, I can tell you this, we take the camp unbelievably seriously. I think if you ask Susan back there, like running that camp is there's a lot of pressure on the person who's in charge of it. Like the camp meetings at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning are as intense as the post-game meeting after we play our first game. Because, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if I want people to trust their son with us someday, there has to be an intentionality behind it. We're trying right now. I don't know if we'll get it done this year. We're working really hard to try to get together a women's, girls 7-on-7 camp. I mean, girls 7-on-7 is going to be the next big sport. It's going to be in the Olympics. And I have two young daughters that just went to Amy Williams Husker women's basketball camp. My daughter, Leona, wants to be the quarterback someday for the Green Bay Packers. And so in the ultimate football state, I think we should be also addressing girls flag. I think it should be in the high schools. I think eventually it's going to be in the NCAA. It's going to be in the Olympics. So I want us to get on the front end of that. So it's not just recruiting. It's just the overall brand. But I think we had a lot of really talented players come through here. And the only complaint I have is like, I think people think that this is like a Nebraska thing. I was talking, Sean was at one of the camps, I was talking to him. Ohio State brings in their top recruits to camp when they're a sophomore or a junior. But Ohio State sees those kids run fast and do whatever, and then they offer them, and then those kids nationally become like a 4 or 5 star, and it's like, well, they're vouched. Well, they come to Nebraska, it's the same thing. I want to see them too. And when we offer them, people are like, oh, well, Matt's recruiting diamonds in the rough. No, we're recruiting future NFL players. And so Ohio State does it. We just kind of say, well, that's what it is. We do it. It's kind of like, oh, they're diamonds in the rough. No. We evaluate just as good as anybody else in the country. And I think what you're starting to see, and you guys who talk to recruits, I know some of you, that's your world, they get an offer from us, and then they get a bunch of phone calls the next couple of days. And people are starting to get offers the next day after we offer them because people know we know how to evaluate. So I think the fact that we're willing to offer people, the belief our coaches have in their evaluation, and it's just a really good way to do business in my mind.
Coach, with the unknowns of roster sizes moving forward, how do you manage that? Because you hear numbers as low as 85 to 120 to nothing. I mean, how challenging is that, knowing that you have maybe the largest roster right now in Power 4 football?
Yeah, it's funny. We were in the Big Ten meetings, and we were the largest, but a lot of the teams, there are teams at 135. There are teams that are close to us. So really in the settlement, the crux of it is that they would like a roster limit, okay? And I think that's going to be conference by conference. But they also have eliminated scholarship limits. So if you say your roster limit's 120, you can have 120 scholarships now moving forward. Now me, as a guy who paid his way to go play football at Penn State and who paid off debt for several years, I don't know what's wrong with helping young people pay for their education. So if we're going to fit 90,000 people in that stadium every week, if we can pay for some walk-on player to not have debt when he's done, if women's softball, if Rhonda can have her students all leave debt-free, I don't see what's wrong with it. So I hope the number's at least 120, and not everyone's going to make all those scholarships, because there's a component to that. If you add 30 scholarships for men's football, now you have to add 30 scholarships to women's sports, to stay in proportionality. So there's a lot of things behind it. Excuse me, my mom's going to kill me for doing that on TV, but I was driving me nuts. But the uniqueness that people say, well, you mean the coach, there's 53 people on an NFL roster, but there's 90, then 80, then 90, then 75 in an NFL camp. And in the NFL, you might have a 53-man roster, but that 53-man roster, by the end of the year, encompasses 85, 90 people, because a player gets cut, you cut them off your roster, he doesn't count, it's just another 53rd person. People get injured. So right now, Demetrius Bell's out for the year, right? Is he going to count on a roster limit? And if we start saying they do, what are a lot of schools going to do? They're going to start cutting injured guys. Is that what we want from education? So there are so many unintended consequences of roster limits that I just hope they think through it. And then I would have a really hard time telling some of the guys who are, just because of where they are, maybe they're the 121st guy, telling them, hey, you know what, thanks for all that you do, but you can't be here. So, I don't understand why we have a roster limit, but if we're going to have one, I'm just waiting to see what they are. I'm operating. I hear a lot of people saying, I heard they're going to do this. I'm just telling you right now, I'm in those meetings. Troy's definitely in those meetings. None of us know anything right now about what's going to happen. So it's going to be a really unique time. It's a time where we have to be really nimble between revenue sharing and roster limits.
How was some injury updates? Like, how's Deshaun, Singleton, Corcoran, Gabe Irvin? How are they coming along?
They're all three fully integrated into what we're doing. Yeah, they're all three doing everything. So if we practice today, they'd be full go.
Is Ly Hill, is that going to bleed into the season a little bit?
I would expect it to, yeah. I don't think any of us know how long that'll take.
I know you can't talk specifically about prospects, but it looks like you're still looking to add some guys to the 2024 roster. I mean, kind of what goes into your thinking here in June as you maybe try to bring in a couple late additions to the 2024 roster?
I don't know what I'm thinking. To be honest with you, I don't think we're really looking for people. I think the one thing that we try really hard to do is we want to try to outwork the work. And so, if we throw camps and people show up, we're not going to look away from those things. And so, we're at a time now where there is no roster limit. There's a Title IX roster limit, but there is no roster limit. So if we can add players who can help us, then so be it. It's not like we're sitting out there saying, hey, go find this, go find that. I think my thinking about the portal, as it continues to evolve daily, I think the one thing, if I could summarize it, it's I don't necessarily want to utilize the portal to get rid of players. A lot of coaches are culling their roster through the portal. I don't want to, if a player comes to play for me, I don't want to tell him he has to leave. Sometimes if a player wants to play, he might have to leave, but I'm not telling him he has to leave. But I will look in the portal, I'll look at other places. And so if someone's available and they can help us, we're going to do our best and do our due diligence. And, it'll create a lot of competition here. And I think the one thing I see, that this group is such a great group and that they love competition. So, we'll be recruiting all the way up until probably July 31st for this year's class. And, there's a couple kids on campus that have popped up. Kids on campus have come to the portal camps. And they've reached out to us. And, there's a guy that's working out with us right now that's, that was just a student last year. So, we'll look at all places to find players.
Did you get the value out of that post-grad camp the second time around that maybe you did the first time, or how did you kind of see that change in year two?
Yeah, I think besides there's some students on campus who came to that camp. I think we've had 2 players from that camp are going to join the roster. So, we made it great. Obviously last year we signed Luke Longville, and we signed, but we added Luke Longville, we added James Williams. James obviously did a great job. I think the key with what we're doing, we're trying to do a complete and total roster flip without having a lot of collateral damage of players. We're not trying to get rid of a bunch of guys, right? So this allows us to continue to add in high-end talent or mid-range talent or whatever the talent is onto the team. I think that's really helped us. But when you look at James, it's also a commitment to once they're here, doing what's best in the long run. Like I could have just played James the last 2 or 3 games, 10 snaps a game, and he'd be a junior going into a really pivotal season. Now he's a redshirt sophomore, going in. Jaden Doss played in a couple games last year, made some big catches, and Jaden's going to be a redshirt freshman. He's starting his first year of eligibility this year. So I think it's not just the adding of players. I think it's the total comprehensive plan of adding players, not throwing a bunch of guys away, saying, hey, you have to leave. And then when they're here, making good long-range decisions. A lot of people don't want to do that anymore because they're like, Coach, man, why are we redshirting this guy? He's going to go in the portal anyway at some point probably. I don't think that way. So it's just kind of a total mindset.
Coach, you've opened up.
What's up with all the coach? Like, usually you guys call me Matt. I like it's so hot in here.
I know. It is hot in here.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
You've opened up the support staff to media interviews this summer. Thank you. What's the line of thinking from your standpoint?
Well, first of all, I'm really, really, really proud of the people that work here. I'm just absolutely overwhelmingly filled with gratitude that so many of them, left jobs, NFL jobs, like great jobs, and moved here. And they did it because of their belief in what we're going to do and the way that we do it. And so I'm just so overwhelmingly grateful, and I'm proud of what they do. Like, the hardest thing sometimes in recruiting is like, you're looking at a young person and you're saying, in my mind, I'm saying the best thing they could ever do in their life is come here. But I just can't show them. It's not like It's a Wonderful Life where I can show them like what's that? Christmas Carol? You look, because I think you like Christmas, right? No? Okay, wow. Hot take. Amy does not like Christmas. Okay, just teasing.
My favorite holiday,
Okay.
but okay.
What's your favorite?
Mardi Gras.
Wow. So I'm saying it's not like a Christmas Carol where you can look ahead and so to me, but I think you can feel it. Like a lot of the families that we recruit, like they can feel the feel in the building. They can feel, that, wow, like Kristen's going to wake up every single day and like, wow, these 5 guys are in Ramadan right now. I need to make sure they have food by sunup, and I need to make sure I make meals to pack to go for them at sundown. And this person's gluten-free, dairy-free, and not only does she want to make sure they have a gluten-free, dairy-free meal, but she wants to make sure they have great food. And she knows my 3 kids are gluten-free, so she's going to have bread. She's just like amazing. And like, and not just Corey, but Corey and his staff. Like, I can leave. I'm not leaving next week, but I can leave next week on vacation and I could know that he's going to train the guys, but care so much about their health. I don't have to worry about him doing something silly and someone getting hurt. And I know that like Gus is going to help these guys as they like come into the program, transition to college, and he's going to help them while they're here, and he's going to help them transition out. Like, so I want people to see that. And I want to give them unbelievable professional development, and also want them to see how hard this is. It's hard to get up here and be like, boy, I hope I don't say the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get to edit it on a live press conference. So I want them to have that opportunity, though, because I think we have several future head coaches, but we have people that can be ADs. We have people that can work in personnel in the NFL. Blessed to have the people that we have. And so, and then for you guys, I appreciate you guys. And like, you know, I mean, you have to write a story every week, no matter what, or every day, or whatever you guys do, right? You need content. So here's great content, you know, so hopefully it's been good.
You've had a chance maybe to see some of the players because of the, you know, you guys have a chance to work a little bit with them. I was watching the spring game again, and Satterfield said he felt like maybe the strongest position on the offense was the receivers. And that wasn't true last year. So, like, how much have you seen that group grow, even just here in this brief time in the summer? And, like, how did that group get so good so quickly?
I think it's one of our strongest positions. I think there's some. I think everyone will go like, well, they got Nayor and Banks. Let me start with this person. Let me start with Elliott Brown, who to me is like the glue in that room. Like, you know, we have a unity council. And he gets overwhelmingly voted in. Okay, so he's the guy in that room that as you bring in all these people, that helps everyone assimilate into our culture. You have a guy in Garrett. You know, I remember when I was hired, people were like, "How's he going to recruit?" Well, he's recruiting pretty well. And he does a great job in that room. You know, that when you're in that room, you have to deal with a lot of different personalities and guys who want to play and have the ball, but he can also build a brotherhood. So I think Garrett's an excellent young coach. But there's just good people in that room, and they're highly, highly talented. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be one of our stronger positions this year. And I think we're like going to be 8, 9, 10 deep. And then the guys who, you know, there's some freshmen that maybe they'll redshirt this year. But if something happens like it happened last year where guys get banged up, they're going to be ready to play. And so, you know, I think it's just a credit to the recruiting, but also the development. And the guys who played last year, you know, they've taken a step this year. So I don't know how to say this right, Sam. It's like sometimes when you have a bad year, the first year, the head coaches usually fire the people that their area struggled. Like our offense struggled. Like no big headline there. But I look at those guys sometimes. I'm in those rooms with the coaches. I'm in the room with Sat and with Garrett. And I'm watching like them triage through the year. And I'm like, what an unbelievable job they're doing. The results don't say that. But that's why you have to have guts to have this job and like to have this position. And like, you know, I could have started over. But instead, I saw the development of Malachi last year. And I saw the development of Jaden. And I saw the development of Jalen Lloyd. So everyone now is watching the spring game like, well, look at Jalen Lloyd. That didn't happen this spring. That happened last year. Okay? That happened because of his mother and father's trust in us to play him after the bye week, because of Jalen's trust, because of the job that Sat did, all the people I just talked about, the Gus Felders and the small conversations. And you do your best work in the first year. You do your best work in losing seasons. The losing seasons bring everyone together so you can have more success moving forward. So I'm expecting that group to be really good. If we want to be good, we're going to be able to run the ball. But we're not going to be able to run the ball into some of the boxes we saw last year. And we couldn't last year when we had to run it without running a quarterback. And so we'll be able to run the quarterback, but we don't want to live on that. You know, we want to be able to line up and run the ball versus 2 high safety looks. And if you try to play 1 high or you try to zone pressure us, we're going to absolutely murder you. And you need players to do that.
What is the plan with, you've mentioned Doss a couple times. What is the plan with him?
He's a corner. Yeah, he's a corner. Yep. He's going to be good too.
What do you see him, what do you see in him there?
I think he could play receiver or DB. Okay? I just think when you can find guys who have the height, weight, speed to play corner with it's not their, we turn down a lot. I think sometimes people think we're measurables only. It's not the 40-yard dash at corner. Okay? It's really not. It's the change of directness and quickness and loose hips. You need guys who run like a 3.9, 3.8 shuttle. I don't know what Jaden runs in the shuttle, but just in terms of testing, it's that change of direction and lateral movement. If you can find guys like that who also have ball skills, who are former receivers, man, you have a chance, right? Because those are the guys who can play the ball in the air. And so Jaden has all that. He's really smart. He's really tough. Jaden's a competitive guy. He's 200 pounds. You know, he's a big man. So he went over there at the end of the spring and didn't really know what he was doing. You watch the spring game. You watch him try to tackle a couple times. He's kind of doing this. Not because he's scared, because he hasn't done it. But I think he's going to be – he need some time to develop. But I think he's going to be an excellent, excellent, excellent defensive back.
Where's
Terrence Knight recently talked about James Williams.
Yeah, Terrence likes to talk to you guys, doesn't he?
Where did he make,
Terrence loves the media. He should be up here today. He's great at it.
where did he make the biggest jump in your eyes? I mean, Terrence told me, but what about you?
I think the biggest thing with James was, I think he'll be the first to say it, was kind of getting out of his own way. You know, again, we started with him in his sophomore year, so it's one thing when you play a freshman and they still don't kind of understand what's expected. You can work them through it, but you going into a sophomore year, you know, being on time, taking notes, being a professional, doing all those type of things. He wasn't really doing at a super high level. He has an elite ability to rush the passer. And because he has the ability to change levels, where like he can be this tall and then instantly be down here and then be back here. Not many guys have that. Some guys are so explosive, and the reason why they're explosive is they're tight hipped and tight ankled, so they can explode forward, but he can change levels. And I think he really mastered that a lot on the scout team. Like he was almost unblockable at times because we let our scout teams play full speed. And so I think it was him just understanding the maturity of it. Now you see him now. He's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. I was out there yesterday when they were running, and what a different world we live in now. Like, Mitch comes running over. He's like, James is done. I'm like, why is he done? You know, he's talking to Corey. I don't get involved in the summer. I just watch. He's like, well, he hit 90% PR, whatever. So if you run fast, basically you get done. So he's running fast. So I think those are the things. And I think as James continues to just mature as his football character, study more film, watch more tape, take better care of his body, the sky's the limit for him.
You mentioned Elliott Brown as like a glue guy in that room. Have you seen the number on the roster grow of guys like that as you get into June here and what they're going through?
Yeah, I think the unique thing about Elliott is that Elliott, he literally is a player who runs his own camps and goes and speaks at schools on his own, who's been hurt and tore his ACL and rehabbed and is way ahead of schedule. And he basically he's working for us as a player development liaison. So no, you would never hire a player to talk to other players except for Elliott Brown, because he's just a different type of guy. And the players love him. So like literally we're running a camp in Omaha youth camp. He's like, my camps are run so much better than this Rhule. And I was like, wow. And he's probably right though. So, but yes, we have a ton of glue guys here. We don't have any. I mean, we don't have any divisive guys. And most teams I've coached, you've had a couple of guys that you have to constantly. We don't. I mean, we're so lucky to have the Cornhusker guys, like the dyed-in-the-wool, like Nebraska guys who like they think they bring the locker room together in a unique way. I think Jamal Banks has been a guy like that coming in, you know, with his focus on not just football but academics and all that other stuff. But I think Elliott's just kind of an outlier. He's just a really special person.
Just to follow up on Jaden Doss, the corners as a whole, it seems like you like some of the young talent there, but there's not a lot of experience with some of them in college games. How do you feel about that group right now, a few months from the season?
Yeah, they'll be good. I mean, think back to last year. Like, you know, Omar Brown had really how many games had Omar played before last year? Not many, right? Phelan hadn't really played on defense at all. Giff was playing a whole new spot. Deshaun hadn't really played. Tommy hadn't really played. Our job is not see people for what they've done, but for what they can be. Now, we'd love to have experience, right? But we're pretty experienced on defense. We have a lot of guys back there who I believe can do it. Now, I mean, if I had an older guy, would I love? Yeah, heck yeah, I love that. If you can get me 2 Tommy Hills, I'll take it, you know. But I mean, Tommy Hill was in the same exact boat last year. Like, we literally were. Tommy, we were going back and forth. Is he a wideout? Is he a DB? Tommy came to me in like week 4 and was like, Coach, I'm not starting. I'm not really playing. Should I redshirt? And I was like, well, can we give it one more? Because he had one more week to play, I think. So maybe it was game 3 or maybe he didn't play one. I can't remember how it worked out. And I was like, let's give it one more week and we'll make a decision next week. Well, now I can't turn on my Twitter without seeing he's one of the top returning corners. So I just think our job, instead of taking the easy way out and always looking outside, is to look inside first. But again, if there's a corner sitting out there that wants to come in and compete for the job, I'd take him right now, because that'll help those young guys be better players. And we're living in a world now, and I'm not saying that we're ready to think about 17 games, okay? But I'm sitting in Big Ten meetings, and there's coaches in there who are talking about rules, and they're talking about, hey, we're going to play 16 or 17 games. So, like, my third team corner is going to be my starter at some point. And I just don't know that I shouldn't give our guys the benefit of the doubt that, like, hey, we should start thinking that way. And if maybe we're not ready for it now, but at some point we're going to be playing more than 12 games. So that mindset of it's not just your high-end, top-of-the-line guys, it's the middle guys. And at some point, oh, by the way, it's our – like we started the year off, no one here thought that Emmett Johnson was going to be the starter, but he was. And he was a pretty darn good starter, wasn't he? No one thought James Williams was going to be playing. He was on the scout team. He was like going to scout team meetings, and he's out there sacking the quarterback against Maryland. So our job is to prepare all 145 guys on the team to play. But if I can add 146, who might help us? And he might not help us the first 4 games, but maybe he helps us in game 10, game 11. I mean, think about it. In 4 games down the stretch, we were like a play away from winning the ball game. Maybe that guy can make one more play. That's how I look at it. That's why I come in every day like just fighting for inches, fighting for edges to get us over that hump.
You had mentioned your staff, how proud you are of them. Is there a role that you still would like to add to the team? Not like change personnel that you already have, but like a position where you're like, man, I'd love to have somebody who could, that's on the wish list. So to speak.
Yes. Troy is well aware. I think honestly, Sam, I'm always looking to hire dynamic recruiters. I'm not a dynamic personality. I like to think I'm relatable, and I'm just kind of who I am. But when I have people who have like that, we do the strengths finder that that the business school here does, and like people who have like that woo that they can walk into a room and light a room up. Like I need that. Like you're gonna talk to Troy Vincent today. Like we were at a recruiting dinner last night, and like I can just kind of be me because Troy is gonna light the entire table up. And so I just always looking in recruiting for people in that role. We have enough people, but I'm always looking to add like a person or a two. So I would love to add maybe one more person in that type of a role. And I think we're going to wait and see what happened with the analysts. I don't want to go out and hire a bunch of like, $300,000 former coaches. What I think is if I have one offensive line coach to coach 23 players, he can't coach all. Donnie's pretty darn close. Coop has 30 guys in the DB room. So if I can give Coop an assistant who by rules allowed to talk, now Coop can focus on 15, and these other 15 that are maybe down the depth chart, they have somebody coaching them day in and day out and pouring into them. So I love having young coaches like that. And if as we have success, some of our coaches will leave. The goal here is to promote from within. It's to raise our own coaches and raise our own operations staff and recruiting staff. So we have all that we need. I'd always love to hire a dynamic recruiter. I think that helps. And then when this analyst role passes, if it does, maybe it's in the winter. Maybe it's like adding a couple of young coaches or maybe promoting a GA. Again, I don't know what's wrong with having someone like anybody here have their kids play Little League, right? And like there's a team with 10 and you love it when the coach takes your kid aside and shows them how to swing the bat a little bit better. Or, I'm watching my girls at basketball camp and, if Alexa Markowski's over there and she's showing my daughters how to do something, like our kids learn from one-on-one interactions. So I want as many people pouring into the players as possible. We're a developmental program. You develop by coaching really well.
Yeah, Matt, the Big Ten is still ways away next month. I just wanted to ask you, what did you learn about the Big Ten last year going into this year? And have you started studying USC or UCLA yet?
We haven't done a ton on USC and UCLA. Our focus has been on UTEP, Colorado, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers. That first half of the season, Northern Iowa. Those first 2 games really hit you fast. Now obviously Colorado will have played on Thursday night. They'll have a little bit of a head start against us. So trying to get as much as we can done, in the summer versus those teams. I've had a chance to coach against Lincoln several times when he was at Oklahoma and when he was at East Carolina. He's gonna find things that his team does really well and he'll master them. In terms of the Big Ten, I think the biggest thing that I learned last year was just and I'd heard about it, but till you feel it was just especially with our stadium, was just the weather. I talk a lot about that. When I coached at Baylor, it might be, I knew I was going to play about 4 or 5 games a year. It was going to be between 150 and 180 on the turf. So I was going to go no huddle, and I was going to try to build 3 strings of defense. So if you went no huddle against me, I could rotate guys because of the heat. Here, late in the year, it's going to be cold and it's going to be really windy, and there's going to be 2 quarters a game where you're throwing the ball into a 30 to 50 mile an hour wind, and I better master those things. Like little things, like I have so much respect for Kirk Ferentz. Like we've always deferred and kicked the ball off so we can get the ball in the second half because we believe in like going into the half with the ball and coming out of the half with the ball. And if you're really good, you score going into the half, you take the ball coming out of the half, you score again, and a 10-10 game becomes 24-10. Well, I watch Coach Ferentz, and he's playing in the similar weather conditions, and how often he takes the ball, or on a windy day will take the ball so he can choose the win and take the win in the fourth quarter. And so me saying to myself, okay, so we lost. He took the win against us. He took the ball against us so he could have the win in the fourth quarter, and then they kick a field goal to beat us, and the ball hits the upright and kind of falls through. And I'm like, all right. But I'm humble enough to learn. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting here saying I have all the answers. I'm humble enough to say this to you guys, knowing that it's probably going to be trending that Coach Rhule says Coach Ferentz is smarter than him. Well, yeah, he is. So I don't care. But so I just think the Big Ten weather. You know, people are like, why does the SEC score so many points? Big 12. Yeah, go play at Ohio State. Go play at go play at Minnesota. Go play here when the wind is howling. I think that's the biggest thing. I think travel is going to be something that, I mean, people are, I think people think they understand, but they don't understand. Like, I keep track of, like, how many days we have rest before a game, and other people, we are way down on that this year. Like, we have way less rest before a game than our opponents do. I'm not complaining about that. But then I have to, on those weeks where someone's coming in with, they had a bye week the week before us, or they had 10 days and we have 6 days, I've got to do a really good job of monitoring, A, the travel, and B, how much time we have. We're so lucky to be in the central part of the country. So it's, 3 hours to the East Coast, 3 hours to the West Coast. How are the West Coast and East Coast teams going to handle flying across the country? What if you're on the East Coast and you're playing an 11 o'clock Eastern game at USC, and then you got to fly back, get back at what, 5 in the morning? No, noon. Get back at noon and then try to get your bodies ready to play the next week. It's going to change your practice. So there's a lot of things here these are the things that keep me up at night, right? Like, these are the things I'm like, man, we got to figure this out. We got to figure that out. And you find out what time your game is, 12, sometimes 10 days, 12 days before the game. So the research says, like, if you're playing on the West Coast, I'm sorry if I'm boring you with this, but if you stay on the West Coast, you should stay at a hotel the night after the game so that you can get a good night's sleep and then fly back the next day. But what if you only get 12 days? Hey, Susan, call the hotel, tell them we need 120 rooms. Now all of a sudden, 12 days out the night. So there's so many things, unintended consequences. But it's like anything else. We were having a meeting today, and I reminded everybody, half of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States were founded in economic downturns, in depressions, and it's because, like, if you are coming in a time of adversity, you better be really well put together to survive. But if you survive adverse times, you'll be really profitable in non-adverse times. How does that relate to us? Transfer portal, NIL, revenue sharing, roster limits, all these things. If we can navigate them just like that much better than everyone else, that's our advantage. And that is the legacy of Tom Osborne, Bob Devaney, Frank Solich. They handled all these different things a little bit better than everyone else in the country. And so that's my job as the head coach here, is to say, how do we handle the new Big Ten and the travel? Like, we're playing at USC. I don't know what time that game is. That game might be an 8 o'clock game out there, which is a 10 p.m. Eastern game, which means the game will get done at 2 p.m. our time, which means we'll leave the locker room at 3 p.m. our time, which means we'll turn around and fly back here. By the time we get to LAX, we're getting here at like 9 in the morning. It's going to be tough, but we're in Nebraska. We do tough stuff. Who else?
One quick question.
I'm not talking to you guys again until this fall. So if you got something, you better throw it out now. Don't call me on the break. I ain't calling you. So no.
I'm curious, whenever we talk to you, it's, just like you were doing there, you're always kind of thinking about the analytical aspects of different parts of the game. And so I'm curious, with the addition of the Guardian caps, if you've seen, or kind of what the data is so far, what you're seeing from that. I know some high schools are even starting to think about that maybe for games themselves, but just what you're kind of seeing from that piece.
Yeah, I did the Guardian cap when it first came out at Temple, like my first year. And there was sort of this other part of it that people were saying, like, hey, is that extra weight going to cause some neck injuries? Is the friction of it? So we kind of got away from it because our general counsel on campus was a little bit nervous about it. Then I got to the NFL, and they added it back in. And, it seemed like it was going to work. I got here last year, and I said, should we do it? And I don't make these decisions. I go to the medical people, and it was sort of like, hey, we want to see what, we're not sure what the data is. Like, is it helping or hurting? Then the NFL doubled down, released the data. It's helping in the NFL, so we went to it this spring. So much so that the NFL, they might let them wear it in the games, right? And so I think my job is always to point out, like, to Susan, or Susan's job, for us to point out internally, hey, here's the new helmet rankings. Like, every time a helmet ranking comes out, I send it to her. Which helmet are we in? if I can help our players be a little bit safer, then so be it. I think anecdotally, and I asked the players, I talked to Ty Robinson the one day in spring, and he was like, my neck feels so much better. Because, you get hit in football, your neck's going to get, Now, I also reminded him he wasn't really practicing, so it might be that. But, so it's anecdotally, but it always goes back to the research. Always goes back to, hey, go back to the medical people. What do they want? Go back to Jay Terry, medical. And so whether it's shoes, turf, like if I'm not making it as safe as possible for our players, then I'm not doing my job. And then the same thing then with, that walk-through room upstairs, all these things. Like, hey, how can we just get a little bit better? And not making it gut feel, but making it researched out.
All good?
Appreciate all you guys. Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Summer.
Ron, with you guys today? Make some good questions, Ron.